audits to discuss. Brad, you want to take it away? Sure.
You want to sit, stand?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Sit, it's less formal. In front of you, each of you should have a draft copy of the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2019. And before I briefly go over the results of the audit, again, as I do every year, we want to thank Rose and her staff and Matt. They do a really fantastic job, as you're all well aware, and certainly they make our job a lot easier. This one easier than some others, but we do appreciate their efforts, and they do a fantastic job. You should really be commended for that. We are engaged by the district to provide 2 audit opinions related to the document that's in front of you. The first opinion is on the financial statements. That's the first 55 some odd pages of the document. And then we provide an opinion on federal program compliance related to federal programs that the district receives. Both of those opinions are unmodified. That's the highest level of assurance we can give. That means essentially we've received a clean opinion in both facets of the audit. In a minute, I'll go over some of the financial highlights, but as you work through the document, on the table of contents is our opinion on the financial statements. That's followed by the management's discussion and analysis. That begins on page 6. That runs for about 10 pages. Rose prepared that. It provides a little bit more of a synopsis of the way the financial statements are prepared. It compares the budget for the current year to actual results. It compares this year to last year. And it's sort of a condensed version of all of what follows, with some plainer and generally less technical language. So I would certainly invite you to read through that. That portion of the financial statements is not audited. It is not required to be audited, but it is required to be included in the reporting package. The financial statements themselves begin on page 16. This is your government-wide financial statements. This is the piece that sort of encapsulates all of the activities of the district. And it brings in your long-term assets and long-term liabilities, where the budget you pass every year is a short-term focus. It's a 1-year snapshot. The set of financial statements that follow this are also on a more of a short-term focus. I won't go through a lot of what's in here, but if you look near the bottom of the page, at the end of the year, the district has a deficit net position of a little bit over $25 million, which I would, as far as I know, every school district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a negative balance there, and a little bit above that, you'll see your net pension liability is $61 million. That's Western Wayne's portion of the unfunded liability of PSERS as of June 30th, 2019. So if you pull that and all of the associated amounts that go with it, that works out to about $52 million. You would carry a positive net position if not for that number. You were required to begin carrying that about 5 years ago. That currently it's roughly 3 times what your annual payroll is. That's what every school district pays. So with that factored in, you're not required to fund that. You have no ability to fund that, like say a nonprofit or a for-profit would with an unfunded pension liability. But I would say your overall net position, because the other numbers there are positive, is very healthy compared to other school districts. Beginning on page 18, as I mentioned, are the short-term financial statements. This page and page 20 present your general fund capital projects fund, which is your capital reserve money that's been held for number of years, and the construction funds from your last debt issuance. And then you also have a debt service fund, which is just a mechanism for funding and paying your principal and interest on bonds as they come due. Also, at the bottom of this page, you'll see your total fund balance at 6/30/19 in the general fund is roughly $11.2 million. Of that, $3 million is unassigned. That's essentially what you've got available to meet current obligations. The largest portion of the remaining items, your assigned fund balance of $8 million, is for proposed and projected capital improvements in coming years, expected increases in healthcare, expected increases in research contributions. So although you've got an $11 million fund balance, you've essentially obligated about 3/4 of that already. So when in the newspaper or something like that, when they're referring to your rainy day fund, in some cases they'll use all the fund balance for that purpose, which I believe is a mischaracterization, because you've got contractual obligations that are eating into that. So this is the mechanism for classifying your fund balance based on what existed at June 30th, 2019. And that unassigned number is roughly 6.5%, which puts you of your budget, so that puts you right within DDE's guidelines. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to the budgetary comparison on page 22. The pages that precede that are going to present some of the same information and also some reconciling items between the first set of financial statements I went over and what we're discussing right now. You'll see that, and as you're aware, you projected to use about $800,000 of your fund balance in 18-19 in the first column there. Your actual results were a use of only $316,000 of fund balance. And there's a number of variances that go into that, but essentially tax revenue projections came in a little bit higher than expected for the year. That's the majority of the variances. Some of the differences in categories relate to the way PBD wants to see it in your annual financial report versus the way you laid it out when you passed the budget. So some of those swings under expenditures aren't because you missed a target on something. It was the way the report was required to be presented. And I will point out and ask you to keep in mind that that expenditure variance, although $438,000 is a decent sized number, that's only 1% of your budget. So a budget that's within 1% of the actual results is pretty good. And so your ending fund balance ends up with a favorable variance of about $2 million, that number in the lower right-hand corner. The majority of that is actually the surplus from last year of $1.5 million. Your starting fund balance came in higher than projected, and $1.5 million is roughly what your variance was last year. So that carries through to get you to that ending $11.2 million number. Any questions so far? Fascinating stuff, I know. The next 3 pages, 23, 24, and 25, are your proprietary fund financial statements. That's the food service operation of the district. On page 24, you'll see that there's a slight net loss for the year, about $50,000, but you're still carrying a positive net position at the end of the year. That number generally will ebb and flow. You'll have some years where that'll increase slightly, some where that'll decrease slightly, based on where meal prices are and things like that. But you have positive net position at the end of the year. There is no transfer, which we see in a number of school districts where the general fund is required to contribute amounts to help subsidize the cafeteria operation. So it is primarily self-sustaining, which is what you're looking for. Page 26 is your fiduciary fund financial statement. That's your student activity funds, and that's just presented as an asset and liability. Beginning on page 27 through the early 50s are the notes to the financial statements. This is going to provide some more detail on the assets and liabilities contained within the financial statements and significant accounting policies, some roll forward schedules that take you from last year's balances to this year, some rather lengthy footnotes on post-retirement benefits and the pension liability, pension benefits. That's horribly dry, terribly boring. But certainly if you have any questions as you go through that, you know, you can ask Rose, I guess. And then, as I mentioned, beginning on page 56 is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, 56 and 57. The district expended about $1.7 million on federal programs during the year. And then the remaining pages are the note disclosures with regard to that schedule and the audit reports we're required to issue with respect to the federal program portion. And then the last 2 pages of the document are your schedule of findings and question costs. That just sort of summarizes the overall results of both components of the audit, whether there were any reportable matters, whether there were any carryover items that were required to be addressed. There are no such items and were no such items. And I know there's a lot here. Certainly, if any of you have any questions or want some additional follow-up on anything, you can certainly feel free to reach out to myself or Brian, who was otherwise indisposed this evening and couldn't make it. But you know, we'd be more than happy to help explain anything. You know, we prefer not to come out just at audit time and do this part and then not have any interaction or anything throughout the year. We're more than happy to be used as a resource if necessary. Again, certainly thank you for again giving us the opportunity in one capacity or another. I've been doing the audit here for almost 20 years now, so we certainly appreciate coming here. Again, Rose does a fantastic job. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Happy New Year.
Thank you to you, Rose. Joe, you're up next.
The other Joe.
I think you can get another copy.
We're good.
Matt and the committee wanted to give an overview of what the recommended course of action is down for the stadium renovations. So I prepared a little packet of what we have planned, what we're recommending, and also I have an excerpt of some of the results of a study I had done on some of the light poles down at the stadium. The cover page, Stadium Renovation 2020, shows a rendering of what we're proposing to do down there. Some of this may change a little bit. If you look at the visitors bleachers, it's a more rectangular shape. We found out that if we eliminated the existing light poles and went to a 4-pole system, we could make those visitors bleachers a little bit more square rather than rectangular. If you look at the field house itself, there's the addition of a walking track which goes around to the proposed visitors bleachers. This rendering also shows 4 light poles as opposed to the existing 7 that are down there right now. And you know, the biggest part of the project, of course, is the replacement of the synthetic turf and the track. If you flip the page, I tried to break this down into you know, what we're doing, which is the scope and the cost, why we're doing it, and the time frame of when we want to do it. And the numbers are right there. They're self-explanatory. You don't need me to read down there. The turf track, the addition of the 500 capacity visitors bleachers. Going down a little further, you see those projected numbers, the addition to the field house. That was something we felt was necessary in order to accommodate the number of students that are down there, the number of sports that are down there. And because of those bigger numbers, you need more storage for everybody's stuff. I have those numbers highlighted as projected to add a little bit more flexibility into the project, and also because we're not exactly sure how we're going to nail down the storage portion of that. There's a couple different ideas. The addition to the field house, I think, is a definite. We're proposing adding 1,500 square feet to the existing field house, which is a 26-foot by 40-foot addition. And there is a rendering here on the desk, and everybody can take a look at that. We want to add to the end of the field house, you know, trying to continue the existing roof lines and the existing foundation lines, add on a big open space in there. Once we get that open space established, we could go ahead and finish that any way we want to.
And the thought behind expanding the field house is to provide more space for storage for all of our athletes, all of our teams, and also to provide meeting areas for our teams, which currently they don't always have. So girls soccer, boys soccer, track and field, they would have more spaces that they can meet and put their gear so that we can accommodate all of our athletics. Again, provide more storage, which is badly needed at this point. So and that's how this project came about. Sorry, Jim.
Going to the why, the track is beyond its service life. If you flip the page over, there's a picture of what the existing track looks like. You could actually pick it up as like a carpet down there. There is no way to fix that. There's no way to get the gear back down to the substrate. The existing track is well beyond its service life. I think they guarantee 6 to 8 years, depending on what manufacturer you deal with. I think that track is well over 12 years old. The turf, the field turf itself, if you walk down there, you can see that some of the fibers are delaminating from the fabric underneath. And most of that is UV damage from the sun. So my thought was, as long as we're going to be down there doing the track over again, we might as well have the turf done over again. The projected lifespan of the artificial turf down there, the field turf, is about 8 years. We're at the 10-year mark now, so we've got our money's worth out of it. I think it's prudent at this point, while you're replacing the track and you're going through all that work, to just go ahead and replace the turf also. The visitors' bleachers, the installation is recommended primarily for safety. If anybody's been to a crowded game, you could see the safety problems down there with everyone jammed into one area, right in front of the bleachers and the field house area. If we could get an additional 500 seats over on the other side, that would spread everything out. Stadium lights, there are significant problems with the existing light poles down at that stadium. I had an engineering firm, Reese Tower Services. They specialize in sports lighting. I had them do an assessment and a survey of the 7 light poles down there. And while they were here, I also had them look at the light poles on the youth practice field. I provided an excerpt of their assessment on the back end of this, and I'd like to discuss that a little bit, go into a little bit more depth with the light poles later, because that's such an expensive portion of the project, but I feel it is necessary because of the safety issues with the lights.
Joe, that's replacing them, so I know they talked about maybe changing the lighting or something.
Our original feeling was, hey, we could put LED lights on the existing light poles, but because the stadium light poles are in such bad shape, the Musco, the lighting firm, said that unless we found an engineer who would sign off on the existing poles, they did not want to do the project. So that's why I brought in the engineer to assess the poles, and he found out that there were significant safety issues with those poles.
So the cost that's over here, this is to do the stadium and the practice field for the youth?
No, that is just for the football.
stadium,
Yeah.
okay.
But as long as he was here, I had him do an assessment on the youth practice field poles.
Okay.
And Joe, just as a side note, that Musco warranty is, I mean, it's blowing away the industry. It's a 25-year warranty, so it's a significant investment, but not only for the duration of the period that you'll have those lights, but additionally some of the features that it offers with being able to actually now control the amount of light on the field, be able to direct a certain portion. So if I'm not mistaken, I think the current setup, you basically have the option of switching the lights on and off, whereas now you'll be able to control the track, direct it just to the field, control the brightness of it, so you'll actually be able to control your power consumption as well, your cost essentially. So there are some nice investment features that return over that 25-year period.
And I do apologize, that's Ray Burnaby. He's a representative from Deluxe Athletics, who we contracted with to do the turf and the track.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the cost savings with the new lights, you can see over the course of several years, that cost would be, the cost of the project itself would eventually even out as a result of the savings.
Right, the LED lights use significantly less energy than the metal halide lights that we have down there now. Every bulb down there at the stadium is 1,500 watts. So, when you have 48 of them on, you're consuming 72,000 watts for every hour.
And Joe will be able to control that from a phone now. I mean, he can.
Yeah, the fun thing about that Musco system is, and I didn't know this, is different sports require different lighting. Yes. Soccer doesn't need as much light as lacrosse or football, and we can control that now. And there's all kinds of different features with that Musco lighting system. I've also given a timeline of when we want to do this. Everything's going to happen on the time, of course. I have spoken